Okay, I'm going to quickly go over the code uh, and what is on GitHub. So, alright, so this is the layout. What I tried to do is try to keep it as simple as possible. I did not want code attached to a lot of stuff. I wanted it to be all centralized and very easy. I wanted to reference things from the least amount of have the code in the least amount of places. So basically we have three places it's on. It's the start game code. Uh, what this does is this is what we use to procedurally generate the map as well as the location of bear traps and such. So under here, I'm just setting a max distance area that we want to spawn these traps because we don't want the trap, well, we don't want the actual killers to spawn too close. So I did about 25, which is about half this area. So they'll spawn from this area over to, so the map's 100 by 100, so it'll spawn about 25% in to the map and the length and width, so it'll make about a diagonal here. That way our killers spawn here, but I did want the bear traps to spawn everywhere, even at the beginning here, while she's walking through, because I figured that these crazy guys setting bear traps up and trying to catch whatever they can catch. So that basically is just going through a for loop and then grabbing the resource folder, which is where the prefabs are for the bear trap and the killers. And everything I'm saying, if you have a better way to do this, let me know. And maybe I'm doing this completely wrong. I'm fairly new to Unity here, so I just get a random point. So the thing was I wasn't sure how to detect. I know how to detect if I was placing an object if it was actually somewhere on a surface, but I was thinking about it and I thought, well, I can just use the navigation mesh. So I am grabbing the nav mesh and I'm finding I'm searching for a point on that nav mesh, and the nav mesh, if I understand correctly, will tell me whether that from a sample position whether it was hit or not. So that kind of resolves everything. If we set up the nav mesh correctly, we can tell it to spawn our bear traps and killers onto surfaces that they're allowed to be on. So that way that these guys could spawn inside of a house or outside. So I thought we could just use this for everything that is being generated at the start of the game. So we have our bear traps and our killers currently that are being spawned, and I have 4 killers that are set up. I actually just reused this because I was, for debugging, it's just a little bit messy here, but I set the values individually for them. So our max killer spawn is 5 and our bear traps are 300. Alright, so there's that. So that's the start game code. The other code is on the survivor. I have, besides the third person controls, which these I think look horrible, the way that she moves, and it just doesn't look right. I just used what Unity has, and I feel like she doesn't move right. Really all we need her to do is to walk or run, and then the other animations to pick up and drop, and then when she dies. But the accuracy of her turning, it just looks too um, like a comic book character, and we want to see if we can. So I really like the built-in animations that we use for the killer, and maybe we could use that route. But whatever you think. So the player's health, I have a slider inside the GUI and the HUD. And this will basically control whether we see blood on the screen, when we do the game over, the damage image, the blood splatter, and the gas can actually, once she gets it, that will actually show up on the screen here. So you can see here, let's hide our pause menu. This drives me nuts, hiding this stuff. But because I have to come in here and figure out what's blocking my way. But there's the gas can, there's our health meter. This is actually, this HUD is the information HUD, which is right here. So that you can see the gas can, the health meter, and then the others are only visible when called on. So let me turn these back on. And so if I go to the character again, so that's just, I'm just referencing these. I guess I can do direct links to these without having to drop the object there. I wasn't sure if it's better to do a direct link to the object or whether to just drag and drop them here like this. I ended up dragging and dropping them. This is just a flash speed of how quickly that the blood image fades, and then the HUD canvas is just a direct link to it. The current health is stored here and such. So, and that code is very simple. It's just checking, one thing is I have to lerp through to fade the image, which seemed like a pain in the butt. But other than that, the heartbeat is audio trigger there, so our heartbeat, depending on, I'll change the heartbeat audio file is just one, and the pitch will just change depending on how damaged she is, her current health, 75, 50, 25, the heartbeat just beats faster and faster, and then when she's dead, then it just calls the dead animation trigger to die, and then the trigger for the animation of the text to come out to say game over. And then these are also, and then if this is a flag, but this isn't being used now to load back up scene 0, but currently you just hit escape and you have to hit main menu or end the game. And that's all I have in here so far. And then, okay, so that's 3 scripts. There's only 2 more scripts. So there is the survivor, and we're just making the survivor do animations. We're also including the health script, so I can directly access and tell the health what to do, and the trap damage amount, the trigger area, and whether a lot of these are just debugging. So I can just have this open and I can see, oh, okay, we're in a trap area, or are we in a trap? And then I can set the trap damage here, and then I'm just referencing the chap on her leg. And the reason I do that is because I either show or hide it, so it's always on her leg. And if she actually gets in a trap, I destroy the object that she crossed into, because all of the bear traps, all they have on them is a trigger. So there's no code or anything. This actual code is just here to give the object a diverse incidence name, so I can so when I run into the trigger, I can say, oh, that's trap 12568, whatever the incidence ID is, and so they don't all have the same ID name. So that way they're unique with their own names. And so that way, and this will indicate whether we found the gas can or not. So that way I can show or hide these on her leg. And then the audio for her opening or closing a trap is also here. So basically in here it just references her health, the animations, the audio, and the bear trigger leg script, which is a reference to bear trigger on her leg, which actually isn't a script, but it's referencing it on her leg, which is right, which is going to be her left leg. And let me know if there's a better way to do this. So it's actually referencing to fire off some audio. There is a script on here actually that I forgot about, and that script is setting it to close or open, which okay, so it's the animation. So when she's opening it or closing it, I call the animation on that actual the leg there. So that's just for the animation. So the collider enter is whether the killer hit us, and the killer's collider weapon on him is called weapon, and then we just debug whether it was hit. So the code in here is, did we hit a trigger? And that's just checking basically to see if we hit a bear trap. If the trigger is a bear trap, then we get the name of the bear trap, and we come in here and do, grab our animation, and we're going to figure out whether whether we're activating or deactivating. So there's an area on the bear trap. If you're in this area, you can deactivate the trap without setting it off. But if you come inside the area where the trigger is a pressure plate, if she comes within this trigger, she'll actually set the trap off and get trapped in it and damaged. But if she's on the outside, she can disable it. So that's why I'm saying, are we on the pressure plate, or are we in the toggle active deactivate it? So so if the player knows it's there, they can deactivate it. And that's what the toggle deactivate means. And then pressure plate means she actually hit it with the pressure plate. Then we find out whether it was closed already or whether it's open. If it was closed, then we don't damage her. If it's not closed, then that means that it's an open bear trap, and we damage her and set that appropriately. So the only other thing that we check for is the gas can in that hit trigger. So she's checking to see if she's hit a trigger called gas can. If so, then we just destroy the gas can object, and we show the gas can in the GUI and the HUD. Later on, we'll add a key gate or a car key. I'm not sure whether she'll try to open, like the gate is locked when she's on her way back because they locked her in and she needs to find the gate key. That makes probably more sense. On trigger exit, we just basically we don't need anything. Nothing needs to happen here. On update, we check whether she's pressing the E key. If she is and she's within a trigger, then we're going to set off the animation for her to activate, deactivate, or take it off her leg. So she's activating or deactivating it off her leg. And then we want to know, hey, is she deactivating it? Is she activating it? Is it on her leg? Is she dropping it? Is she picking it up? That's basically all this means, R and E. Is she picking it up? Is she trying to take it off? And then wait open trap. This I had to add because of the animations. I wish there was a better way to do this because it's hard for me to predict. I have to figure out how much time to wait, how long the animation is going to go for. And that's all these are, just waiting for the animation. So that's the biggest part of the code, which seems pretty straightforward. And then the other code, so there's no other code that's on her leg. Her eye is actually a reference to, this is the only way I knew how to do it because I want to cast a ray to see if the killer can see her. So I just put a big ball inside of here, and then that way the ray collides through her mesh, and then he detects, is that the player? Did I collide with the player? There's probably a better way. Let me know a better way to do that. So I've organized it so under player, the camera is also included, so you can move around the player and not have to readjust the position of the camera. The camera follows behind her, and those two scripts are just the Unity default free camera and the protect camera from walls. Those seem to be fine. So this is all the objects in the world. Those don't have any code on them. The effects, those are just for the wind and leaves. The pause canvas doesn't have anything on it. None of these do. The GUI does, and the GUI is just for when you press escape, it'll either show you the menu with all the buttons, and this is basically saying, do you want to quit? Do you want to load a new menu? And so forth. So that's just the main menu. So the last thing is the killer. So it's going to be under resources and under killer, and under the killer script. So I have and let me place him in here. So he has a area around him that's the trigger area. So this also plays a sound in this area. So if she's within this area, she'll hear a sound of da 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 da, like he, warning her that he's nearby, but he doesn't see her. So that basically is what's saying is the killer is close, and that's this audio. And you can see that if she's within this, she'll be able to hear it, and it'll get louder as she gets closer to him, and fade out as she gets further. So that'd be an indicator how close she is to him. The green trigger area, this one here, is it's a trigger to tell the killer that, hey, she is in the trigger. Can you see her? As soon as she's in that trigger, a blue line will come, and it'll be blue in the debug if he can't see her, and red if he can see her. And I'm just casting a physical ray cast to see if I can see her or not. And that only turns on when she's in this trigger. So the killer's eye, which is here, was once again the only way that I knew how to cast a line from this object to that object with the ray cast. It was so I can control it better, because their points of pivot points are down here, and so it was so much faster for me to just throw this up here, because then I could draw a line there without doing an offset and height and all that stuff. And I don't quite understand that because I'm new to Unity. So that's why his eye's there, and the eye is the one that's actually casting the ray cast once she's in the trigger area. And then just, of course, his nav mesh. So let's quickly take a look at the code, and then that'll be that. So so we just get a reference to the player, because we want to detect if the trigger was a player. I actually directly pointed to the player's eyes, because I found that if I didn't do that, I would have to I couldn't just drag and drop like 10 killers in here, because I would have to keep telling them what to look at, which I'm guessing that we could actually look at the player, that I don't have to put an eye inside of her to see if we've blocked it, which would be great to improve on. So we just get the killer position, we get the player position, and under a fix update, all the killer does is he just says, is the player in the trigger area? And if they are, then cast this physical ray cast and see if we've hit the player, and then we just debug red if we do see the player. Otherwise, we debug blue because we don't see the player. And this will only fire off on this fixed update if in killer trigger equals true, which will only be true if on trigger enter. I didn't put that code under the on trigger enter. I might have been able to. That might have been a better thing to do. I just put it under the fixed update. Maybe I should move it here. I'm not sure. But and then once the player exits, then of course it's called that we're not in the players. I'd say you can't see them anymore, and you're not in the killer's trigger. That way, it doesn't keep checking even after she leaves the trigger. After she leaves the trigger, they're far enough away that he will. So what happens is, if he sees the player, then the nav mesh destination equals the player transform position. And I figured that once he doesn't see her, he's still going to be going to the last place that he saw her, because this won't get updated to a new location until it reaches that location. And so if this comes back false, that she's not in the killer's trigger, or he can't see her anymore, that he will still have this position that he's trying to reach, and that would be the last position he saw her. Here's something that's not working that I don't understand. I want him to stop and not go any closer to her. Like, don't run into her. Don't try to get to zero her position. Get far enough and then swing. But if he has to keep running and swinging, if he's close enough to hit her, that's fine. If she stops and he swings, he should never run into her. But for some reason, I can't get this to work right where player.magnitude is less than 2. It seems like he kind of still wants to run into her, so I could be doing that wrong. This just says that the attack time, he's only allowed to hit her the attack time, which is set to, um, well, actually the attack time is the current time. So the repeat time, so every 8 seconds, he's allowed to try to hit her. And then he plays the attack trigger, which will then set his machete, which is in his right hand, which is a rigid body, or where am I? That's like, which is in his right hand. Is that right? Which has a box collider on it, and when she detects that a collision has been made and it's a machete, then she will set a damage point off for herself. I don't know if that's the best way to do it either. It seems like even if he's not whipping it at her and she touches it, she will receive an indication that she's been injured, which is probably a problem too. And I do not like, I don't mind the killer's animation. It's not synced up when he's walking or running. I did mask it, so really quickly. So that's all the code. Then we're basically done with that, And killer is the way when he patrols, he does the same thing. He just does searches a random point by getting the nav mesh sample position. Um, and that's that. So the very, very last thing is how this is organized here. So super simple. The flood grounds are all of the content, the brush, all the actual content in the environment. The under freeze tag, we have the cameras, and all these scripts in here are from Unity. The characters, which is going to be the parasite, which is the killer. We have a prefab here, but that prefab is not the one that has the code. The one that has the code that you'll use is under the resources. So, but under here we have its animation. I have an attack, run, mask, and then these different types of animations and the animator. So under the animator, I just have simply a idle, walking, and a look state, which I'd like to add that when he gets to a point, he pauses, looks around, sees if he can see her, and then continues to walk. The mask state is so that he can attack her whether he's running or not. So I just masked the upper half of his body. So no matter what happens to his bottom body, whether he's walking or running, his upper body can swing the melee attack and don't have to create new animations for that. And then under the parasite, which is the killer, he just has everything that is dependent on him: sound, horror chase, and then his script. So that's what is currently attached to him. That's the script here. So for the survivor, once again, same thing, animation. Now all of these seem excessive because all we care about is if she's walking or running, jumping and all that stuff. We probably don't care about jumping. And I would like to do a survivor injured, so when she's injured, she walks slower or runs with a limp or walks with a limp and possibly slows her down. And then, so this is the survivor animation control that I currently have in here. And that just allows her to pick up, drop, crouch, grounded, and then this is the Unity stuff that was already in here previously. But I have a couple of things in here that I've added. The main menu is just for the nervously looking around. That's just the main menu where she's just standing there looking around. Environment, nothing, it's just your skybox and stuff. Items have the bear trap, prefabs that are on her legs, and the bear trap that gets loaded in. Those have animations attached to them, and that's just the animation of it opening and closing. These are the scripts, which I don't even think we're using anymore. This is old scripts that we're not using anymore. And then scenes are the main menu. which that just has that code to start the game. Um, just start the game, super simple. And the levels, which just has one test scene with the nav mesh. And that should um, that should be it. I am working on correcting these colliders, and that's it. So any help would be great, and I really appreciate it. If you need any more information, let me know. Otherwise, this is all located on the GitHub. Thanks.